What's up, guys? Welcome to part 4 of the Shaded Harmony how-to stuff. Yeah, you know the title already. So this is part 4, as I said, and we're doing editing this time.
It is a rose that in yonder garden grows.
So I guess to start off, the way the whole editing process starts is I will get the footage and it will be on my SD cards that were in the camera, or cameras, depending on how many I'm using. And I'll put that into my computer and basically save everything on. And then John will send me an email of the audio file that he has post-processed. So once I have all of that, I can start editing. So also real quick, the hard drive I use is this. It's a LaCie Rugged, I believe it's called. It's a 2 terabyte. I use this, and then the other one I have is this. It's pretty much the same thing, different model slightly. I like it. It's been reliable so far, and it's really easy to carry around. Extremely portable. So yeah. So let's plug this in. I always edit off of my hard drive. I think it's better because, one, it saves space on your computer, and you don't have to worry about transferring files and deleting them and removing them from your trash. And two, if you want to go edit on a different computer or show someone what you have, if you have it exported or whatever, you just want to view the footage or something, all you have to do is unplug the hard drive and then plug it in to whatever computer you want. I have a folder on my hard drive for all Shaded Harmony productions, and I have them all organized by date, so it's really easy to find what I'm looking for. So when I'm starting a new project, I'll create a new folder. So if we do new folder, and then I'll do 2017 underscore 09 underscore, actually it's 10 underscore 01. So that's the date the video comes out. And the video is Say You Won't Let Go. So we go into here, and then what I do from here is I always create audio, photo, and video. And you'll see where these come in handy in a little bit. So I have all of the files on my desktop already, just so I could save time with taking them off the SD cards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put all of this video into the video folder. And I'm going to let that transfer, and I'll be back to you in a second. And actually, while I'm waiting to do that, I have the audio file in my downloads, and I'll throw that into my audio folder. So the next step will be to have Premiere open. So I'll do new project, and I'll title the project the same thing. So 2017 10/01 Say You Won't Let Go. And so now I just wait for the rest of the video files to transfer. And I guess I can just explain this while we're waiting. If you see in the titles of these files, I do it in a different way, kind of for different videos. I don't normally do it this way, but I was using 2 different cameras on this shoot. I was using my Canon T2i, which is a very cheap DSLR, and I was using a Sony NX5, which is a different kind of camcorder, more expensive with more options, although the quality doesn't look that much different from the T2i in my opinion. So I just labeled the 5 different takes I have from there, and I did do more takes, but I only downloaded one. It has a little bit of a different interface for when you download videos off of the folder that it's created on the SD card. So I have, the only file I need is this one. So I have the NX5 file and I have the T2i files. And just for sake of showing, if you go into like Happy, this is from our Happy video, and you look, I have everything organized by the shots. So whether or not I have shots planned out before this, and these are actual shots, which in this one they are, so you can see there's the slate. Whether they're actually planned out beforehand or it's all just me making it up on the shoot, I will name them something, so I always have something for my files to stay in order. So it's really helpful to have everything organized like that. So let's go to here, and it looks like the video files are done transferring. So now I'm in Premiere, and I'm going to import media. So If you're using Mac, I use a lot of keyboard shortcuts, just a warning. So it'd be Command I is import, and I could do it from there, but I'm going to go to the folder that I just created on my hard drive. And now that I'm selected in this folder, I'm just going to import the entire folder. So there'll be the 3 different folders. And so now you can see, since there was only this audio track in the audio folder, it didn't import the folder, it just imported the individual track. There was nothing in the photos folder yet, so it didn't do anything with that. And then the video folder obviously has more videos in it. So this is really all I need to start. So the first thing I'll do, I'm going to go ahead and import the audio file, since that's going to be the same throughout the entire track. I hope this doesn't turn out too long. I'm trying to keep it short, but we'll see. I'm kind of just going through my editing process, which is not always a short thing. So now that we have the audio file, the way I shot this was I had one stationary camera, and that was the NX5, and it was just set up on a tripod, and they just did their performance. And then I had my T2i, where I was moving it around and getting more close-ups so that I could cut to those, so it wasn't just one shot. But to start, we're just going to put the one shot in. I should also mention, I usually use a mouse when I'm editing, but my mouse, I need to get a new one. It's been doing some really weird things. But just so you know, if you're into editing, it's a lot easier if you're using a mouse than using like a computer trackpad. And I also have an external keyboard. I've kind of gone back and forth with the keyboards I use. Now I'm just using this cheap USB keyboard. I've also used like a Bluetooth keyboard, but sometimes it has a slow response, so I like the quick responsive keyboard more. So you basically have your video clip in now, and you need to line it up. So the way I do this is I'll zoom in, and I usually, sometimes John will send me some claps in the beginning of the audio file, but sometimes he won't. So I just have to manually find the location, and this can take some time. It's kind of something, you just have to look at the waveforms. So if you zoom in on these just by scrolling, then you can see the waveforms better. And it's really quiet right now. Let's see. So if we get over to here, you can see here's where the music has started, and obviously it hasn't started before. So you're going to want to go back a little bit and just basically line it up. And you're going to have to zoom in a ton to see it. And this is honestly one of the most annoying processes of editing, in my opinion. The rest, it's kind of easy. It's just lining everything up, and then you get to go into the creative process of deciding what goes where, when. So let's do this, and then I'll be back. Okay, I've got the audio lined up. So now that I've lined up my actual mastered track of the audio, the one I got from John, and the just camera audio, I want to go ahead and delete the camera audio. So the way you do that is your video and your audio are going to be linked together. So if you move the video, the audio is going to move with it. So what you want to do is unlink them. So if you right click and then you can click unlink. I accidentally already did it, but basically you do that. Or you can just, once you have them selected, it'll show both of them are highlighted, and then you just click Command L. So I've done that already, so we're just going to delete it. So now we know the video is lined up with the audio for camera 1. So now we'll move that down to the bottom level of the video tracks. Alright, so now we've got the T2i audio lined up. So I'm going to go ahead and unlink them and delete that audio. So now we just have the 2 video tracks I need and the 1 audio track. So now is the fun part. You get to go through it and choose what parts of what footage you want to include. It's kind of the fun part. You're making the cuts. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm just going to start by just choosing the parts of the T2i footage that I like, the parts that turned out well. Because a lot of it is transitional between where I'm just moving from, being on the guitar to being on John's head singing, to being on the keys of the keyboard. So I want to make sure that I have only good footage showing. So I'm going to start with that, cutting out all the bad. Okay, so now I've basically cut out all the parts that are really bad in it, and I'm left with a bunch of chunks in my timeline, And the best way to do this is just to go through and kind of just interpret the music and see when it makes sense to have something up there. This is obviously a different way, I guess, of doing editing. It's better, it's more of a live performance editing way. Another thing I can do is, okay, so you may have noticed that the colors look a lot different between my two cameras. Now, this is for two reasons. One, the cameras are different cameras, and they have different capabilities, and they're going to yield different results. In general, you probably shouldn't use two different types of cameras on a video shoot, but I wanted to use two, and I could only get one NX5 or one T2i. So I decided to just use the two. And there's a way you can kind of fix that. Number one is while you're shooting, you should make sure your camera is white balanced. Both of your cameras are white balanced. If you don't know what that is, just look up the settings for how to white balance your camera. You should also have similar exposures and ISOs, which again you can look up if you want to know more about exposure or aperture or iris and ISO. They should be similar. You should be able to look on the screens for each camera and just be able to see a very similar image. Now, in this case, it could be better. It's not the greatest. So if you see in Premiere, it actually has settings to adjust your white balance. So I can either adjust the footage from the NX5 or the T2i, and you're probably going to want to play around with both. I'm going to start with the NX5 to try and make it a little warmer. So you can see I've tried to white balance them in Premiere, and it's kind of working, kind of not. Really, this just comes down to the fact that I use two different cameras, and there's not a whole lot I can do. So let's go to the NX5 footage just so we can see it. And actually, I'm just gonna reset both of these numbers just to get the raw footage from what it looked like. Now, some of the cool things you can do is, first of all, you can play with all of the general image settings that you have in any image editing or, I guess, video picture editing software. So you can play with the exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, blacks, all that stuff. You can saturate it and stuff. Now what I'm going to do is, this really cool thing about the Lumetri color is it already comes with a bunch of preset colors that you can just lay over. So for instance, if we want to get really moody, we'll go to SL big minus blue. So that makes it all blue. And there's a bunch of different settings. You can kind of just go through them all. There's some black and white. And one thing that I actually could do to kind of like fix the incorrect colors on this video is if I just put it in black and white, it'll be less noticeable. So there's a lot of creative availability, and you can kind of choose what you want to do with it. So for this, I am just going to, let's see. I tend to really like these codec presets. All three of these presets are all really nice, and it really just depends on your footage. It doesn't really look good, this one in here. But some of them have like the faded film look. Some of them are much more clean. I think all of these three presets have a really nice look, and they're not too harsh. And of course you can also adjust your intensity. So if you don't want the full preset showing, it can, bring it back. So, and that's probably something you're going to want to do, because you probably don't want it to look like 200% like that. So I usually have it around, I think around like 75-ish. And there's a lot of other things you can play with. If you're just getting into color grading, you probably don't want to worry about these yet too much. But basically you can play with like tinting it and stuff and all the different types of tones in it. And there's even further stuff that we will not get into. And then you can also put a vignette on it, which is a really cool effect. So you can just kind of choose the amount that goes, and then just all the settings for vignettes. So that's a lot of fun stuff that you can play with. And that's pretty much it for color grading. So once I have the entire video together, and I don't yet, but let's pretend I do, just so you don't have to watch me edit all this crazy stuff, since this is a video I'm optimizing for YouTube, I'm going to do what standard music videos and YouTube videos do. Is I'm going to put some titles on it, and I'm going to put some credits on it. So first for titles. And of course I might change all these shots and cuts around in the future. But basically, and what I just did was I just dragged every single clip forward, so there wasn't that chunk of empty space. You can do that if you press A, and then just make sure you click on the furthest clip to the left, to the beginning. And let's see. So now that we have this at the beginning, I'm going to create a title. So if you have the newest version of Premiere, it's been a few months now, so you probably should if you're using Premiere. The title panel is now down here, and you just click the T, and then you can just put a title up here. So what I'm going to put is, let's see, just for sake of example, say you won't let go, and we'll say shaded harmony. So now you have this, and to edit it, you go to Effect Controls, and this is how you'll edit everything. If you want to edit the video, for instance, you can see there's the position, so you can physically move the video around side to side or up and down. You can zoom in on it. You can rotate the video. You can play with the opacity. And then there's also this entire panel right here for effects, where you can go into, let's say, video effects, keying, for instance. Select the color key, or the Ultra key is basically a green screen effect. So if you have a green screen, you would use the Ultra key, and then you would just key out green and put in your video for whatever else you want. So it's kind of just stuff you have to just play around with, and you'll eventually find a use for everything. Alright, so now we've got this. So I'm going to want to center all of the text, and then further I'm going to center in the screen. So I just center the position, and I want it to go up a little bit. So I'm just going to drag it up. And I kind of like this center style for this. I think this will look nice. So now I'm going to set my font, which, what do we use? And you can play with the alignment of the text. So this actually looks really cool. I really like this. It has a very modern look. You probably see this in a lot of I almost want to say like a lot of live performances on YouTube. You'll see this kind of look where the text is all spaced out. But that's one of the things you can do. You can also play with the vertical spacing. That doesn't really have an effect here, but if there wasn't a gap here, you'd be able to literally just merge the text right on top of it. And yeah, that's the thing you can do. You can change the color of it all, obviously, all those things. So basically, I have the text set how I, for the most part, like it. So I probably don't want to start just like this, where it's just on it, and then when we're done, it just cuts off. For text, I usually use fades. So if you just do, let's see, cross. So, okay, so in, I don't want audio. So in video transitions under dissolve, there's the cross dissolve. Now, cross dissolve is really like the most popular effect you'll probably find yourself using the most in terms of transitions. So what I want is I want it to just dissolve onto the screen, and then I'm going to add it to the end, and it will dissolve off the screen as well. And of course you can play with the duration of your dissolve. If you want to use some other effects, there are a lot more effects to use. So there's also the dips. You can dip from black, dip to white. There's a lot of stuff in here you can play with. So we've basically got our text. Now, in the event that I am completely done with everything else, which I'm not, but pretend I am, we will go over to the end of the video for this one. Kind of makes sense. And what I'll do is we probably want to fade it out. Now we can also fade in. This is, again, you can use a dissolve or you can use a dip. I like dissolves because you have a little more control over the graduality of it. So let's see. And actually for this, I'm probably just going to cut this clip. So then I have it just on this one. And if you watch, I just have it dissolving. And there's some sound at the end too that I'm either going to want to, one, cut out, which actually probably works. Yeah, so then what I'm actually going to do is, so if you go into audio transitions, there's the crossfade, and you can basically throw in a fade. Exponential is just a quick fade. So when you're happy with what you have, it comes to the time where you have to export the video. So I'm just going to show you real quick how I do that. So you can go into File, Export. I always, like I said, I use shortcuts, so I just do Command M, and that will bring up this window, which is the exporting settings window. And you basically choose your format and all that stuff. So the format you're going to want for YouTube is H.264, and that's basically just a standard format for YouTube. Just use it. And then you can name the file that it's going to output as. So we'll say you won't let go. And then you can check these. Usually this is just going to be matched to your source already. It's already in 1080p, so I don't need to do anything. And a lot of this other stuff is usually just set to how you want. And you just want to make sure that you have both export video and export audio selected. Otherwise, it's only going to do one or the other or neither. So after that, you're ready to export. So you can either just click export, or if you click Q, what that will do is it sends it into Adobe Media Encoder, which basically is a program meant for exporting files from Adobe programs. And it basically means that if you're working on, say, multiple projects at once, you can export through Media Encoder, and then you can go right back into Premiere and continue editing in there. Where if you just export from Premiere, you can't use Premiere while it's doing that. So it's a really cool feature if you're trying to do a lot of stuff at once. Alright, so that basically sums up the editing tutorial. It was a very basic tutorial, but I hope you learned something from it. And just so you know, you don't need Adobe Premiere, you don't need Final Cut Pro, Sony Vegas, whatever, you know, the top-notch editing programs. You can do this with iMovie, Windows Movie Maker. There's a lot of free programs out on the internet. You just have to search for and you'll find stuff. Editing should not be a burden because of money. There is really no problem about gear with editing. As long as you have a computer and the footage, you can edit. And it's as simple as that. You don't need nice headphones. You don't need a nice keyboard, a nice mouse. You don't need anything, because when it comes down to the basic part that matters in editing, it's all about your creative ideas. Now, of course, you can, as you go further, do more stuff with After Effects and Premiere and all of the more expanded options available. But to really start, all you need is just something that can cut video. Hopefully you learned something from this tutorial, even if you don't end up using Premiere Pro to edit. If you use iMovie, there's actually also an iMovie app for iPhone, which works as well. So there's a lot of options. So don't be reluctant just because you don't have the money to buy Adobe, Premiere, Creative Cloud, any of that subscription stuff. You don't need it. It's nice, especially if you're a student, but you don't need it. So with that being said, that wraps up the How to Produce a Shaded Harmony Production series. And maybe we'll have another series coming at you soon. We're not sure. We want to do some more behind the scenes videos. So until next time, hope you enjoyed this and stay tuned for our next music video. Alright, see you guys.